All right, good afternoon. Today's, I guess, programming will be a little bit different than normal. First thing we're going to do is we're going to have an interview with Mike, um, joining his Discord channel, talking a little bit about the Pokemon reinforcement learning, which is why I have that up now. And then um, talking a little bit about the Big Data Bowl, and then we'll jump into the Instagram stuff. So give me a second here and I'll get joined. Hey, Mike, can you hear me okay? No idea if I have the audio. Let's see. All right, I see sound, but I don't hear it on Discord. So I'm wondering if something's interfering with that. That I know what it is. Okay, there you go. I can hear you. Cool. Yep. Mhm. Yeah. So it's been probably about 2 months since we last talked. I've been experimenting with a variety of different things. The biggest issue is getting through Mount Moon and the random encounter rate plus all the trainers there. I actually have not gotten any further in terms of progress in the game. It turns out, as I dug into the stats from that run a little bit more, I had 24 agents going. About six of them had made it through to Misty, even in that run. And then when I reran that same run, I was not able to replicate it. And watching and streaming those runs, it's because eventually it gets cave fear, as they like to call it, where once you're in the caves, you have every step is a random encounter. And because not it has not figured out the most optimal path through the cave, it's still trying to move through and explore to try and confirm what that optimal path is. And then what ends up happening is good. Yeah. So on the technical side, it's a about 4% encounter rate for every single step that you take inside of Mount Moon. And then there are 11 trainers along the way as well. and it's the first time encountering some of the newer types. So there's some electric Pokemon in there, a ton of Zubats, Geodudes, which I hadn't really learned the optimal ways through. And depending on which starter you have, greatly changes the outcomes. So Bulbasaur is actually a harder starter to get through Mount Moon for the agent because you only have, I think it's 10 Vine Whips that you can use, and it runs out of those pretty quickly. And then it will struggle or it'll use tackle over and over again against the Geodude and eventually get knocked out by them. And so even then it tries to then, okay, well, instead of fighting the random encounters, I'm going to run from them. But over time, it just runs out of moves in terms of making it through even the trainers. And so then it starts to use struggle, which causes to hurt itself. So even though it's massively over leveled, it never fully figures out the right area to get through Mount Moon. And even if it does, you still have, there's a grass patch outside of Cerulean City where you still have a chance to encounter Pokemon as well. And it tends to get lost in that grass patch as well because of the way the cliffs and everything are designed. The only way to really understand that was, like, looking at it too. Mhm, mhm. Yes, yep, mhm, yes, yeah, yes, and then so this is almost from the agent's perspective, there's a little bit of fault in the reward function here because it's getting rewarded for every agent that it encounters and every step that it explores. So it wants to cover the map as much as possible. One, to figure out the right way through to those rewards, and then two, to gain as much reward as possible. So there are certain trainers in Mount Moon that even though they're on the quote unquote wrong path to actually completing the area, it's still getting rewarded for. So it wants to maximize its score and move there. So that creates part of the problem that is also at odds with a little bit of a puzzle, right, in terms of the different ladders to choose in Mount Moon. And in this case, it's like the last ladder that you can find on that first floor is the correct way forward. But then, even if you do that, you start to encounter a series of tougher trainer battles where I think the wild Pokemon that you're encountering are like level 10 or so, but then the trainers, I think there's what the Raticate one that's like a level 16 Raticate with Hyper Fang that can basically sweep a whole party. So that one is its own challenge to get through. And then, well, now it's sent back to, even if it learned to use the Pokemon Center, it's either sent back to like Pewter or Mount Moon Pokemon Center. And then all of a sudden it's retracing the same steps, but it's not getting the same reward. So the agent's like, why should I do this? I want to increase my score, but I'm not getting any reward. Hmm. 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 Right. So part of that is the setup of the agent itself, right? If it's not making any progress by essentially proceeding forward through the game as we want, it's going to go back and try and maximize other places that it had not been fully before. And so if you start with its save state right at Mount Moon, but you have not pre-filled the map locations that it had visited for everything up until then, it will choose to backtrack because it's going to get the exploration reward. It's going to get all the event rewards there. And so it's easier for it to proceed backwards, not lose progress in terms of you're going to get what a negative score for dying, plus you're going to stop your exploration increase because you're relearning all those locations. And so you have to, even if you load that save state, make sure that all of the locations on the map, as far as previous places, have already been filled or rewarded. So that way the agent does not learn to go backwards instead of forwards. Mhm, mhm, mhm. So I'm not specifically manipulating any of the rewards. I just tried to encourage it with, like, I increased the badge reward there to try and hopefully have it realize like the badges are very important. So I need to figure out where those are. I also tried giving it in my most recent ones, a novelty reward for um, going to new squares for the first time in a little while. And then also putting in a penalty for not moving out of a certain location in like the last 500 total steps. So it was good in that it got it out of the beginning area a little bit quicker, but it wasn't learning the Pokemon centers. And then when it would die and go back to like Pallet Town, even it all of a sudden was like, I'm getting penalized for every movement that I do, even just standing still. I don't know what to do anymore. And so it would just hang out in the corners again, which was what I was trying to alleviate by putting in these different penalties and rewards. But it's a very hard challenge. Yeah. Um, I for this challenge, I would not consider it a cheat. You're gonna want to reward it for doing certain things anyway, no matter what. That is the whole purpose of reinforcement learning, is to try and train the behavior that you want here. And it's like if you are, I would say if you're rewarding like every step in the optimal path, that I would consider cheating. But if you're going to tweak what your reward functions are, like you're only going to reward certain events instead of like every event in the game memory, like it is set up now, I certainly don't mind that because you're going to tell it which ones are the more important ones to go to, and then which ones should you like not prioritize as much. That's why, like, even I just did a simplified version of just, yeah, I'm thinking of giving it like 200 points for a badge reward now, and it should only get a few hundred even before that. So then it's like, oh, I should really rush to those places and figure it out. Hmm. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I actually used a few people's different versions of the repos. So the first one, it had, I would say, like a small memory leak, but it accrues over time. And because I'm running on a laptop with only 16 gigabytes of memory, it runs out fairly like 23 hours. I would say fairly quickly in the grand scheme of things, given that it should take it about 5 to 7 days to fully beat the game or fully learn the game at that point. But 23 hours is disappointing because you're losing a whole day and it's not saving anything. So you have to start from scratch each time. And then I did get access to another version that was able to make it through the game entirely. The first time it had failed. It failed to get through the what is it, Silpho, to get the Silph scope, and it didn't figure out that part of the game. So it was running for like 5 days, like 300 million steps or so, and then um, yeah, because I was like, I see it making certain landmarks in the game, but it was stuck because it could no longer get any more badges. It couldn't get surf. It couldn't get. what else was there? There was one other one. So I had no way to access Cinnabar to continue the game. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Mhm, mhm. So I did not end up getting a GPU for myself during Black Friday or like an upgraded computer. I'm still using it's probably now about a 6-year-old laptop that I have with a GPU. It's a RTX 2060, so quite old now, especially given the 5000 series are coming out. Um, but I did get a version that actually had made it through the entirety of the game using their libraries. So it wasn't like I felt like I had to all of a sudden then like massively increase my hardware. Plus, I think it's a good data point for people trying to do this on an individual machine instead of needing a server cluster like a lot of other people do for these projects. Hmm. 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 Sure. Yeah. I think if you're doing cutting edge stuff, you will need a GPU cluster. I think there are a lot of things that can be done locally without needing some of the scaling. Like if I'm like looking at your approach to the AI clip generator, it's going to depend. Like there are ways you can kind of shortcut it depending on the nature of your video itself. Because if you're talking about like an informational space, it's probably faster to go through and pull the transcript of the video and tell it to like pay attention for certain keywords. So that way you're massively cutting down the size of the file that you're looking at. So that way you can approach it with something that is, on your own computer or laptop. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, now if it's like you're doing gameplay video, that's much you have to then have something that can actually look at your video the whole time, and that would be something you'd want a GPU to use. And I don't think you necessarily need a GPU cutter or a GPU cluster for doing the cutting there, because I think that's a little bit of overkill for what you're doing. I think some of the higher end cards, like the 4000 series, could be able to do what you're doing. But if you're giving it a 2 hour long video, it's got to process that whole thing and then try and analyze every single aspect of it. And when you're thinking about video versus text, right, everything now scales up. So when you're going a video, you have what, three inputs instead of one because you have the color scaling for each of them. And then if you're putting anything, I don't know how it's measuring virality in terms of the video. So now your context window that you're feeding it each step of the way is now much larger in terms of its evaluation. Sure. Mhm. Cool. I'll grab those and I'll pull that into the playlist then. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yes. Mhm. Mhm. So I know a little bit about the paper. They have been a bunch of different people have been working individually to try and find the best hyperparameters for the reinforcement learning agent as far as Pokemon Red goes. And so each person has been kind of taking different aspects of what they're doing and then combining it all for their paper. Um, I think right now they're Sweeps is like adjacent to it. What a sweep means is that once one of the key objectives has been obtained, it's going to move all the agents to that location of that event and update their progress to saying they've completed everything else. But that first agent that has done it is now there. That's to keep the agents all moving relatively close to one another instead of having some that are falling massively behind. Right? I'm sure you noticed when you were running it you would have a couple that are way out in front of others, and then there's a few that are lagging like way behind. So by the time you get to pewter, there's still some that are exploring the victory road corner, right? They're trying to find the most optimal. Yeah, they're trying to find like the most optimal hyperparameters for getting it to learn quickly and proceed through the game in a stable state. So each person has their own versions that they're working at, or their own hyperparameter adjustments that they are training on to do it. And some of them are doing certain shortcuts just to try and gather the data. And that's something that my run that had actually succeeded in beating the game they had a glitch enabled that after a certain point, it would basically give the lead Pokemon infinite health. And so it kind of fast tracks the progress to proceeding through the game and making it to Victory Road. Because I was surprised. I think it was at like 150 million steps, and it had already made it to badge 6, which I was like, oh, that's really good progress. Because that's when I started to notice before that it was like kind of stuck, but it had made it through this time. But then I woke up the next morning and it finished the game at like 220 million steps. And I was just like, what happened that it fast tracked through everything? And then even they were kind of surprised that it had made it in that quick of a time frame. And then we pulled out the states and it was like at Victory Road, you could see the glitched health bar where it had infinite health on lead Pokemon. I was like, okay, now this makes more sense on why it did it. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, their average sessions that they give is about 1 billion in terms of the training to let it proceed through, just to give you an idea of just like how much that glitch kind of speed tracked everything. Is it's usually in that 8 to 900 million step range when that finishes. Mhm. Yeah, so the version that I was on was getting about 25 to 30 million steps a day, and that was I think it was 24 agents running on and I've very limited power on my machine compared to like the server clusters that they're doing. So the scale obviously as you get more powerful brings everything down. So they're able to run sweeps in like a 24-hour time frame to complete those, almost 100 million or 500 million steps usually in about 24-hour range. Yeah, so a couple people have different setups, but it seems like there are, if you notice on the map, you'll see like box three, box four. Somebody has a couple boxes that they've made available to them for the purpose of the experimentation. I don't know where they're getting it from, but it's kind of crazy how powerful those machines are to be running those stably. I think I talked to one of the members. They have their own server machine that they're using as like I think it's almost 256 gigabytes of memory on that server. That it's just like it's a beast of a machine that I wouldn't even know what the be to put together something similar myself. Yeah, real fast. Yeah. Yeah, I think somebody has actual machines that are that I do not think that they are renting AWS clusters. Like I know from my time, like I used to work at Amazon on their metrics team, and we were using one of the machines there for our daily work. If it was that we had to pay that out of pocket, it would cost us a $250,000 a year just to run the reporting server that we had when I was working there. So I worked on Amazon Prime Video, specifically on their live sports stuff. So I was working on Thursday Night Football when they first got that contract, and I built a reporting server and then a anomaly detection for when the events are going live. And the cost to just keep that running was about $250,000 per year. Sorry, yeah, per year. Yep. Sure, yeah. So I just finished up. Monday was the submissions for the 2025 Big Data Bowl. You were kind of given a open-ended prompt this time into what to solve. You weren't necessarily looking for the best model overall. This was more about being able to build a model and then be able to tell a story. You could choose to focus on like the predictive side of things or the metrics and create your own metrics if you wanted to, or you could focus on a presentation that was going to be presented to coaching staffs. So what was really interesting for me was the top 10 in each of the different groups got the opportunity to come out to the NFL Combine that'll be here in April to present to teams and officials from the NFL. So it was a really unique opportunity. It's not just the prize, but the opportunity to get up in front of what is a very cutting edge sporting analytics group and be able to talk and present your findings. Mhm. So the submission was on Monday. The next steps is now waiting for the evaluation. I don't. They did not give a specific time frame on when they're going to get back to you, but my guess is they would have to get back to people by March because the combine is well. Hold on, the draft is in April. I think the combine is somewhere around the March timeframe as well. So it's I, I I imagine it said there were 7,000 entrants. I don't know that that means that there are 7,000 submissions for them to go through because each member of the team has to join it. Like I did it solo, and then my big experiment that I was running on the final days actually crashed out my own computer, where I was trying to take each team, take all the columns that I had built out, and try and find the best ones that are relevant for each team. Because each team is going to have a little bit of a different model or better predictors for one another. That was the intent behind the experiment. But basically, I let it run for 36 hours, and then all of a sudden I come back and my computer's blue screened. So on the last day, I put together a presentation, just kind of summarizing everything that I had done, and it was basically proving the point that you can have all the best data, but some of the simplest models were actually what was performing the best. So you would think, oh, you're going to have a big complex model, but the logistic regression model was performing the best, or it was basically exactly the same as a random forest model. And so the logistic regression also then gave you explainability to say what was working well in terms of the different models that were going there and what were the key coefficients that you had going on. So that was part of what I talked about in my paper, and that each team was a little bit different in terms of what um, what like added extra predictive power, but there were massive trade-offs between one another. And it was like you could get most of your power from simply knowing three columns. What is the team? What is their offensive formation? And how are their receivers laid out on the field? Not even getting into the highly technical part of knowing exactly how far away from one another people are. What is the down and distance in terms of the game situation added a little bit of predictive power, but you didn't need anything overly complex. And when you did, you weren't really getting much more results in doing so. Mhm. It's you can create metrics, but they're all interconnected to one another, and that is part of the key here, is that they're not necessarily adding more predictive power because a lot of times it's already explained by another variable that you have in the model. So it's like I had a version that calculated the distances between players on the field, when they were in motion, like what were the top speeds, things like that. It added, we're talking like half of a percentage point to predictive power when you did those. And then I did a grand model that had all of them together. And it was actually, your performance was now getting worse than it was before. So um, So that would be the absolute improvement, but there is so much variance within each team and who they face each week that that becomes more important than all the different factors that you can add to it. Like I said, the key predictors that were giving so much power were what is the team that you are, what is the formation that you're coming out in, and then who are the players, not even who are the individual players on the field, but how are you arranging your formation. And it's like that kind of makes sense. And I'm sure if I spent more time with it, there are like key individual players who will add some predictive power, but there are going to be limitations to every player. Like not every receiver runs a perfect route tree. right? There are routes that they are better at than others. And so a lot of times the offensive scheme is already taking that into account in the formation that they're coming out with. Mhm. Yep. Yep. Yeah, but you can think about it now. What that means is that the floor for all the players has gotten so high, like the level that they have to compete at, it's really hard for individuals to stand out in a statistically significant way, right? Mhm. Yeah. Mhm, mhm. Yeah, so YouTube is a little bit different than Twitch in terms of like what the audiences are expecting. I think what has helped is just being consistent in terms of streaming. I moved from streaming in the evenings to more in the afternoons. And also, I think I got quite a boost over the holidays that I have not been able to replicate since then. I just think people have more time available to watch things. I'm basically multi-streaming, so everything is going up on Twitch is going up on YouTube as well. The only thing is YouTube keeps your catalog so that people can watch things over and over. One of the things that I found had worked best is if you're streaming regularly, YouTube I think helps people to find your content. So even if they're watching live, I think if you're going to the channel, it will suggest a lot more of my videos versus a lot more of the other content creators' videos that you have out there for yourself. Um, I don't know what necessarily the like how that's all working together, but like I had my best week by far was like the Christmas to New Year's week in terms of number of hours watched in terms of like the live stream. And I had letting the Pokemon agents run during that time, which it's great in terms of getting the hours, but then I'm not really creating anything new during those times because I can't keep my laptop supporting both simultaneously. Which was nice because I didn't have to be here. So with the kids off from school during the holiday, I could spend time with them. But the trade off was like I wasn't really doing much of anything new, and then I always had to bring those streams down to stream the actual development content. But it's been progress. Like yeah, December was my best month by far. I've only been doing the streaming on YouTube since I think it was September, so 3 months. I'm happy with where I am too. I think I'm at like 60 subscriptions now, which is nice. Um, great, 61, great. Because it was, I think, yeah, yeah, I think because I think I'd seen your channel too. Shorts is definitely challenging. Like you get a lot of views, but you don't get a lot of people who actually like watch your videos and sub to like because shorts is pretty self-contained, right? It's going to play your video and it's either going to move on or it'll repeat for the person if they want to go back. But I think that it's good for traction if you're like a general streamer, but a lot of my stuff is educational content. And so I had a fair amount of people who would come into the live stream, but then they would go to my playlist and watch the video from the beginning, especially like the Pokemon series on building everything up, which is great because I think those first couple videos I talked about just kind of getting yourself set up with the repo. And so people had watched that, like that was my best performing video. My watch time for those over the holidays went from like 3 minutes on average to something like 20 minutes because people had actually been watching the video all the way through now. I think it helps that these, are self-contained product or projects, and I worked on organizing them better on YouTube. I didn't have playlists or anything back at the beginning of even December, so it's just kind of organizing things a bit more and making it easier for people to follow. Mhm. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'll be in the Discord if people have questions. They can ping me there, or I check in on your Twitch from time to time, just kind of lurking in the chat. So if there's anything, I'll chime in. No problem. This was a lot of fun. Thank you guys. I think it's just disconnect. Okay. So that was Mike. We had met, like I said, or as we said in the call, about 2.5 or so months ago, because they were interested in the Pokemon Red reinforcement learning. I had been doing my video series kind of as we do every couple days here, updating the progress. So we had a conversation just around progress there, and then as you saw today, really updating progress, and uh, it's been, like I said, probably about 2.5 months, and there's not been a whole lot of things to update in terms of new breakthroughs or revelations since then. And this is one of the challenges in reinforcement learning, is that breakthroughs are slow, especially in cases like this, where you have a very open-ended uh, project that you are working on, right? If you think about the game of Mario is very different than Pokemon. Same thing with Tetris, where the levels are very self-contained and well-defined with one another. So if you're playing Tetris, right, you just have the grid and you're working to try and complete the grid over and over again. And the first couple times, the model's not going to do very well, but by iteration 1,000 of playing through that puzzle, it's going to get better and better and better. It's going to recognize what adjustments it needs to make in terms of its overall strategy and how to improve it based on the block that's coming in, the shape of the bricks that are already laid. Whereas Pokemon is, I'm going to call it like a multi-step project. There is the exploration aspect of the game of having to move yourself all around the world of Pokemon. Then there is the battle aspect of the game, and how do you handle fighting different trainers with different Pokemon all along the way. And then there are puzzles hidden along the way. There are unique abilities that kind of unlock as you progress that present a larger and larger challenge to the reinforcement learning agent. Is it's trying to understand and balance each one of these as it moves through. So a lot of times in the earlier part of the game, the only thing it can really do is explore the map and try and figure out where does it need to go to make progress in terms of receiving the rewards. One of the things that I think I had done poorly with this most recent implementation is the novelty reward here. So if I pull over, this is one I had let run for about 4 million steps just to see its progress here. And what you'll notice now is that the exploration score is so high that the agent really is only going to move around the maps. It's running from battles all the way through, which then means its Pokemon are not strong enough, and so it dies a lot when it's trying to make it to those key locations. So a lot of times it will rush to Viridian Forest. It will encounter, because it's exploring, right? It's exploring, but it's running from the battles because it's not really adding the same amount of reward as the novelty here does. And so it does ends up doing really poorly. And so I have to massively bring down this exploration, right? Where to get it in line with other things, I almost have to cut this to point 0.1 again. or I have to continue scaling up the rewards on the other side of things to make it a better balance of things. So we had been doing the reward scale at 2, which means the levels that it obtained here is only its Pokemon only gained 5 levels from uh, being on. And if you see here, it captured another Pokemon. So if it captured a level 3 Pidgey, that means its Bulbasaur only leveled up 2 levels to level 8. It means it's not going to be able to do anything, even though it got a fair amount of battles, or I shouldn't say battles, events completed here. So I think let's go here to the reward function, and we can see how it's actually getting. So the event rewards are already being times forward here. And then it's getting times 2, so it's at 8 times multiple here, which means it only completed 5 events in the game beyond starting with like the very beginning of the game. So in this case, it might have, let's see, getting the potion is a reward along the way. I think one of them is like it's probably just barely getting to Viridian. No, not even Viridian. Yes, sorry, Viridian City. Into those areas based on these reward scores. That it's not even really progressing all that much, and that's because I basically ended up making the score so lopsided for exploration that it would never want to battle. Why would it? It's not really getting much of a score here. And then you see the dead counts here. So 14 means it died 7 times because I'm multiplying everything times 2 across the board here. So I think what I'll do is I'll take that reward scale down to be 1, but I'm going to put these in here manually for each of them. Like this, rewards for events should be 5 times. We're going to take the other one down to 0. The died count then will come back normal. Badges times 100. I think that is about where I want them to be. Giving it some reward for getting the items, and then the same thing here for the number of Pokemon caught. And then this will stay the same because it's not getting scaled by the reward scale. So let's bring that down here. So we've essentially cut the reward factor by 10. So instead of it having 1,000 points for exploring, it's going to have 100 to try and get it moving more. And then this should also, where is the stuck penalty here? This will also bring that down by a power of 10 as well. So it was 9 before, so now it'll be 0.9 for not moving as frequently. I still think this is okay to get it to be progressing through the game, but I don't want it to be the case where the agent does not learn to battle along the way. And so let me go to the levels reward just to see what is here and make sure it's working as I want it to do. So the first 20 levels is just going to get a straight level for point increase. Then here it's divided by 4. I'm just going to take this down to 2, and then here. So levels 20 to 40 is going to get a half point, and then I need to rescale this to be 30. Otherwise, it would get a massive drop off. So the expected outcome here is when it's at level 40, it should add up to be the same thing. So 30 could be the same outcome as when this is 40, right? So 40 minus 20 divided by 2 is 10. So that's the 30 here. And then it should continue increasing because 40 minus 40 would be 0. So it should have been at the score 30, and then it's going to get a half point for each level after that. So I think this will help to, I hope, stabilize it into getting back into battling regularly, to improving the actual, I guess, overall game progress. I don't want to say like the agent progress, because it had been struggling with getting to even Brock and beating the gym. I think one of the challenges here, and I mentioned this during the call with Mike, is that the challenge of getting uh, Bulbasaur to actually use Vine Whip against the Pewter Gym has been a major challenge. It likes to use Leech Seed because you get that reward function of getting heal, but it does not particularly choose to use Vine Whip all that often. And I'm actually curious if Vine Whip is the same. Pull up a window here. Uh, what is it? Pokemon Gen 1 Vine Whip power. The Vine Whip has a power of 35. What is Tackle? And Tackle's the same 35. So it does not really see much of a difference between Tackle. Yeah. It does not see that high of a tackle or a difference between using Tackle and Vine Whip on a lot of the Pokemon that it encounters. It's just another move. The only hope that we have is that Tackle doesn't have anything left and it uses it against um, a rock or ground type to learn that it is super effective. The agent does not understand super effective moves. It would have to be something that I wonder if we can pull that out from memory. Um, let's see. Pokemon Red, super effective. Could say it that way, and memory value. Let's see. If this mentions it. One in party data, move lists. No, so we'd almost have to code in something to evaluate what move is it actually learning. So that's not particularly helpful. Yeah, okay. We'd have to code it in ourselves to go through it, look at the moves that it's using, and give it extra points for doing super effective moves. So I don't want to spend the time to do that today. But it does not, yeah. I have to figure out because I have to put together a list of all the different moves, all their types, and then also for the Pokemon, what their types are to assess it the right way. Digital Dreamscape told you to be back. Yeah, glad you're back here today. We just finished an interview with Mike, who he streams on Twitch under Crystal Mess. He let me link his which here he's a software developer that we connected with a while back when I first started the Pokemon projects, and he was nice enough to bring me on to talk through my progress uh, about 2.5 months ago, and then we just got caught up again today on it because they hadn't done much with it over the months, but they were just curious to see because I've made probably the most progress in Gen 1 that does not that starts from scratch and does not have like an infinite learning phase. The challenge that I've run into though is recently the scaling has just been off considerably. If you look at here, this is a run that I had to bring down so we could bring the stream live. The exploration score just dwarfs everything else in terms of the progress. That the agent stopped battling just so it can explore more and keep getting those rewards. So I brought that down by a factor of 10 to just see if we can continue making progress there. But that'll also bring this stock value down by 10. And I'm hoping that it continues to learn to go do the events, the battles, and then eventually the badges. So we're just talking through some of those changes. One of the key issues with it now using Bulbasaur as a starter is it does not reliably use Vine Whip against Brock because it's the first time encountering rock and ground types. And it chooses to use Tackle a lot because it will do the same damage as Vine Whip in terms of the overall power in the game. The only thing is that it's super effective versus the ground and rock types, and it did not learn that essentially from its progress. So we'd have to hit a point where Tackle would not be available, and it to use Vine Whip to be like, oh, hey, I should use that versus certain Pokemon because that was a very, very good move. It won me the battle in like single hit, right? If it was an individual learning Pokemon, you kind of figure out, oh, Bulbasaur, if I use the other abilities, oh, Vine Whip was really good against them, so I'm going to use that over and over again. But the agent just had not found a way to figure that out. Like I said, it was running from battles altogether. So its Bulbasaur isn't even properly leveled for Brock when it's encountered it. I think it's level 9 Bulbasaur trying to go up against the Diglett and Sandshrew trainer, and it was just getting wiped over and over again because it knew Leech Seed, which would let it survive a little bit. A lot of times, it wouldn't even beat the first Pokemon in that battle, and then would just wipe over and over again. That it wasn't learning, I would say, the proper way to go through the game. So I'm making some adjustments here for those values, and then I originally was intending to do some poking around with the Instagram data API to do some research there. I'll do that here on the second half of the stream, just to see if we can build something that I want to be able to go through Instagram's hashtags to see what people are doing. My wife had given me the idea for her business is they basically are paying for one person to scroll Instagram and see what people are what their other people in the industry are doing, so that they can see what was successful for them or what wasn't. And the best way to do that programmatically would be to go through a certain hashtag, and you can pick whatever you want for your business or industry and see if you can work backwards from the video itself to see like what are they doing in the videos that was successful. Which videos are even performing better than others would be another thing, and we can get that all from the statistics without even needing to watch the videos first, and then let's go into those videos and analyze those, right? So instead of having an extremely wide net, we want to first narrow it and then look at those videos and see what they're doing. And this is essentially what they already have a person doing full time for their job is they will go through, they will create content for them on Instagram, but they're also then looking at what other people are doing in the same space and try and see if there's something that they can do to improve, or oh, that one really popped off compared to what they would normally get. What did they do differently for those? Yeah, because I could use that for my personal marketing efforts. Yeah, and that's the idea. was even though I would build it, even if I could build it here publicly, right, and it would essentially be open source, everyone would see the process. Um, you end up businesses will find this extremely valuable, and so your market there should be a market there, and does it do it well compared to others? I imagine there are already tools that are similar to this, and I would guess a lot of the companies would have these kind of in-house that they wouldn't necessarily want to share it out with others. But if I'm an individual working in marketing, if I could not have to spend 2 to 3 hours a day scrolling through Instagram and hoping I find something, and at least being able to be pointed in the right value, that's a good place to start, and then building on it piece by piece. So that's the idea for the next video or stream series that I'll be working on. Is we'll go through Instagram API to try and see if we can get access to videos that are in like certain hashtags. Then once we get there, can we get data on those videos to narrow it down? Can we download or acquire those videos? Even if I have to have an agent go open the browser, record the video from a screen, and then bring it back down. Um, that's like the most brute force way to do it. And then can I use like an AI or an LLM to break down the different pieces of what's happening in the videos? And then once I have that, okay, the videos that are doing well, are there things that are common across all those videos that, let's say, one video at 5 seconds, they pop up something on screen that's like a promo code, right? And then another video, well, they pop a promo code at 10 seconds, but that's like the part of the reason why their video was so highly watched is that they both have that promo code part in common. That's the part that would start to then really drive value to the business. Is like you'll see on YouTube videos, right? 10 years ago, you would just have people who put up the video because they found it interesting. And now you'll see on a lot of videos, you'll see at some point there will be like a bell icon, you'll hear the little ding, that triggers your little brain that I'm supposed to go like and subscribe to their video or their channel. And so the reason why everyone's been doing that is because it's clearly been working, right? And so we want to kind of help companies to be able to find the same thing in their industries or in the hashtags that they're interested in. That, yes, content will start to feel a little more samey, but the reason why they're doing it is because it's been working for other people. So that's the goal behind it. I need to do more research on the Instagram API. That way I can see what is how even I can access it. And then let's see here. Instagram API. I think I just need the basic. Yeah. Mhm. Maybe I do need graph. Figure that out here. Let's see. Guess we'll open this. So this goes and gets. Oh, interesting. You can get all the IDs for their data. Yes, we can't access the objects directly. via the API, but we can work around that. And then it's going to return comments and likes. Okay, so this is, at least we could get access to the Instagram account, find the like and comments on a video, get that ID back. And then we can do, even with just these three, we can establish like a ratio to determine like the virality of the video compared to one another, right? Like you see here, this one, 9,000 views, 6,000 comments, right? But this one led to more engagement overall, only 6,000 likes, but 50 comments. What's the difference between those? Same thing here. You got 6,900 likes, 63 comments. So even though these two have the same amount of comments, this one resonated with its audience a little bit more, and we should look at that. If I just had to pick one, for the most part, we would probably take in most of the top performing videos. Let's just arbitrarily say like the top 5. Let's see, go to hashtag search. Interesting. So you can only do 30 every 7 days. But so you can get 30 hashtags, but you can query it over and over again in that same 7-day period. Gotcha. So we can do the hashtag search. It will then get the top media or recent, both of which are useful. Then this is our user ID here from the sample. What you're going to search for, it looks like hashtag Coke or Coca-Cola. It then returns the individual data IDs. And then if I had those IDs, theoretically, then I could go look at them and get the likes and comments on those videos as well. That makes sense. What is insights? Let's see. So some of these are not available. If you have less than 100, it's fine. Get the numbers on one of your own media objects. Okay. Looks like a lot of these have what I'm looking for here in terms of individual values. Interesting, there are different periods, clearly, because you have period of lifetime. So I'm going to guess there is like a window you could provide that would be useful. This is the basic display. No, it's being depreciated. So it then has to use the other one? Back here. Get started. If I don't have something yet, I can skip the 1 and 2 just to get a token. I have to create a developer account. That seems fine. That makes sense. It's pretty straightforward. So you develop an app and then they let you put it on the, I guess, the Instagram store. What's using the Facebook login? I don't care necessarily about that. Hold on. So what is the graph? Okay, the graph is using Facebook login. Copyright detection. Okay, that's not what I thought it was. So theoretically, you could create a video for them, post it, and then engage marketing on it. That all makes sense. Going through here. So seems like I need to set up a Instagram developer account or Facebook developer account, then receive the API tokens. So all of these seem like, well, I need an Instagram business account more than a Facebook one. So we go here, create that. Oh, Meta for business? Hold on, it says it's not available starting December 2024, but here we are in January of 2025, so that's not true. I was just gonna lie. You have to have a Facebook account to make a Facebook business account. Okay. So I'll have to set this up and we can put this together for next time. So what I'll do is I'll go through the registration process, create an account. I imagine it won't take too long, although it's a business account, so maybe it will be a little bit longer. And I don't want to display my email here as part of the registration. So what I'll do is I'll transition the stream to, I'll bring it down for a moment and then right back up to be the agents running with the changes that we had made here. Let me set that up. So I need just 4 agents running and headless is false. So that way it will show the agents as it plays through the game. It'll go 200,000 steps and then repeat. All right, perfect. Thanks, Digital. Yeah, so I'll bring the stream down for probably about 5-10 minutes while this gets set up. And then it can run and iterate on this, and then we'll let them learn. So do that. It should be, I brought that offline. Oh, I forgot. I know what I forgot to do. They're learning from scratch. So because I made such large changes to the agent scores, I need to go here and wipe this out. Otherwise, it'll keep doing the behavior where it is not. It's not actually fighting the battles it's winning. So, like I said, I'll bring this down. I'll bring it back online probably about 5 minutes on Twitch and YouTube to have it continue running through. Oh, and I got to grab those lo-fi from the other folks. So, yeah, about 4:45 here my time. About 10 minutes from now, everything should be back up online. So, thanks for coming, Digital, and thanks, Mike, for interviewing today. And I'll see you guys in a few short moments.